what's really good is your hand-on knowledge is from the vendors themselves who actually manufacture and build the equipment. They know that equipment inside and out. As much as I'd like to say I know or Bob knows it, these guys work with it every single day. So you're getting accurate and up-to-date information on the latest equipment that's in the industry. And I think the last one I have to say is you get friends for life. You're going to walk away having friends for life once you participate in that.
Welcome to the AOAP's Discussion from the Deep End podcast, where we share real stories and practical ideas to help you run safer, stronger aquatic programs and facilities. I'm Daniel Peters, your host, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Kirsten Barnes. AOAP is a nonprofit dedicated to improving aquatic education, recreation, and safety through training, resources, and community. Today's conversation is a special one because we're joined by two longtime aquatic leaders with deep experience, strong industry relationships, and shared commitment to advancing our profession. We'll talk about careers in aquatics, what's changing in the field, the importance of relationships and leadership, and of course, a little of AOAP's conference talk too.
First, we're excited to welcome Mark Basnight. Mark was part of the initial group that took AOAP from a concept to reality, and he's been a longtime AOAP volunteer and cheerleader. Since 2023, Mark has also been the deputy director, where he supports conference vendors and sponsors and helps bring the wow factor to conference. Mark brings more than 40 years of aquatics experience, including over 20 years in the public and municipal sector, along with private sector leadership as regional sales manager for Lincoln Aquatics. He's also served on multiple boards, worked with NRPA Aquatics, and supported AOAP as a vendor liaison for years. Also joining us is Bob Kappel, Director of Sales for Recreational Water Products in North America at Prominent Fluid Controls, and that's a mouthful. Bob's career spans more than 3 decades in aquatics and water treatment, including work in design, installation, product development, and industry leadership. He's been involved in AOAP since its inception, serves on multiple committees, and is widely respected for his expertise in water disinfection and secondary treatment systems. And, as those of you who joined us in Reno know, he plays a mean guitar. Together, Mark and Bob led a motivated group of professionals to put pen to paper and make the dream of an education program for facility techs a reality when they helped launch AOAP's annual Aquatic Technician School in 2023. And in case you've never met them, they're also just really fabulous people.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. That was awesome.
I know.
Indeed. Awesome people indeed. Mark, let's start with you. You've worked across municipal aquatics, sales, boards, and now AOAP leadership. How has that wide range of experience shaped the way you see the industry today?
Well, I mean, it's been a great journey, and I've basically gone full circle in just about every phase of this industry and survived many booms and plateaus and budget cuts. And honestly, that journey has kind of humbled me because early on, I believed that I knew everything about aquatics, occasionally like looking over my shoulder to see what other folks were doing. And then the light bulb comes on and you discover your mentor and things about start to change. For me, I realized it was really simple. In aquatics, it's all about relationships. And the relationships you build basically build your character, throughout your profession. And what changed since my early years is how fast everything moves. Information now is really, really quick. Back in the day, it was really slow. In fact, when I started in aquatics, there weren't computers, wasn't cell phones. We didn't have all that stuff. And so nowadays, misinformation spreads really, really quickly. And you got to be aware of that. And I value the patience and the proven practices over all the hype. And what is marketed today basically is sometimes a copied version of something that Bob and I have seen in years past. So if anything, my experience has made me less reactive and probably more proactive. I don't chase trends. I don't look at what actually works long-term. I look at what works proven. And in aquatics, proven is everything, including relationships. Remember, the job is not just about maintaining a facility or buying products or training lifeguards. You're actually managing people's livelihoods. So when I finally put that all into perspective, that's philosophy I began to push forward.
That's awesome, Mark. Bob, your path has taken you from hands on design and installation to product development and leadership. What first pulled you into that world of water treatment? And more importantly, what's kept you passionate about it for so long?
That's a great question. And I spend a lot of time thinking about that because how long do you have? It's a long story with a very interesting beginning because I never imagined myself in aquatics. When I moved to Wisconsin in 1994, I took a job at a ski resort golf course, Devil's Head Resort. And one of the duties I was given was taking care of the pools. And I got my CPO. I learned about pH. I learned about chlorine content. I learned about controllers. And one of my first mentors there, Clyde Hagerfield, was very patient with me and sat down with me alongside the pool. And he taught me everything I needed to know at that point about running those pools that I had responsibility for. And it wasn't until years later, after many iterations and working service and working in management roles and working eventually into controller design, UV design, and production, I realized that it was not a job anymore. It became, I loved it. And I was actually coining a phrase at the time, and I know I'm not probably not the first, but took my sales guy hat off and I became a pool guy because I love the industry so much. And I don't know how that happened, but it just became part of me. And it's been a passion since then because I love the industry. I love seeing good things happening. I love seeing people be successful. I love helping people be successful, but also bringing people products and techniques and information that's useful to them so they can run a better facility and pass on to making a great environment for swimmers, for patrons, or whatever type of water that you're getting into. So it's really been an evolution, and it's nothing that I really knew that was happening at the time. It just became just part of me. And I love water treatment. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Just ask anybody at a party when their eyes glaze over and they're done talking to me about pH. It's, it's quite an adventure. So I love it.
That's awesome.
And you asked a question there too, and I'm sorry I kind of went off on a long ramble there, but what keeps me passionate is that I was given some opportunities by some people that took me under their wing, and Mark made a mention of the term mentor. And throughout my years in the industry, I've been very, very lucky to have some great mentors in my life, like Kent Williams and Wolfram Hartwig and John Whitmore, Bob Bradley. Some of these names go way, way back. Frank Strand with the old Strantrol products. And I feel like it's my job to pay that forward, to be able to help people getting into the industry and maybe even some veterans, giving them some insights that I've gained over the years. And that's where I am right now, is that I'm coming towards the end of my career. It's not the end, but I'm getting to that age where retirement is part of my plan. And I want to make sure that I leave my information behind and not take it with me. So it's really important for me right now to teach others everything that I can possibly share with them.
And I think, Bob, you have such a unique approach. For those of you who have ever taken a CPO, AFO, Aquatech class, it's very technical, the science piece of it. And Bob, you just have such a great way of bringing it down to a basic level so people have an entry point and can really start to learn. And I don't think that's something that everybody can do.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because one of the things that's real easy for us professionals to get lost in the world of acronyms and topics that we think are really simple and really basic are really hard to grasp for somebody that's not. And so it's really important to remember where you are, what point you are in your career, and making sure that you make it so that people can understand, because I could get up there and deep dive into a lot of things when I'm teaching a class, but when I see those eyes glaze over, I know that I have to reel back and be able to take it down to bite-sized pieces in small amounts they're digestible for people and they can better understand. Because some of the topics are pretty complex and pretty scientific.
They
Huh.
are.
Sounds like you're setting yourself up to kind of give back to what you've been given at the start of your career. So, which is
I have
all we
to. How
can
could
do.
I? Yeah, how could I not? It's the people are generous with their time, and so I want to be the same with mine.
When you moved from the field into a broader industry leadership role, what surprised you the most about the way Aquatic operates on the business and relationship side? You touched on relationships already, but what surprised you the most there?
It was very humbling for me to be an operator and be coming to the sales side. And what I quickly learned was I had a lot to learn. Aquatics again it's a relationship industry, and I quickly learned it's not what you know, it's who you know. And Bob touched on that. The mentor part of our industry is huge, and I, as well as Bob, had some amazing mentors that took me under their wing as well, and helped shape my career. And, in the beginning, you're more hands on earlier in your career. You focus on customer wants and customer needs and water quality, kind of all the intangible pieces. But stepping into a broader leadership role, you start to see and trust that, your trust is the real currency. I mean, people need to trust you in the industry. And if they don't trust you, you're not going to go very far. And the strongest businesses aren't just the ones with the best inventory or the best prices. They're the ones that are most consistent with relationships. And, those are the people that are relying on you day in and day out on your everyday business, and you got to be consistent with that. And I was also struck about how small our industry really is. It's not that big of industry, but it feels bigger when you're in it day to day. But once you zoom out and realize reputations travel extremely fast, um, you become more of a focus, and especially when things go wrong. You can't be there just when things are right. You have to be there for people when things go wrong just as well. And I didn't early on, I didn't appreciate how loyal our industry is. People aren't just buying safety equipment or systems, they're investing time and passion and identity into what they're building as well. We help shape that. And I didn't realize and respect the emotional connection, but that's a huge part of what drives decisions on people and how they run their aquatics facilities. So the big shift for me was understanding that the successes in aquatics isn't just about technical expertise. It's about your credibility and your consistency and how well you manage your relationships over the long haul.
And if you've ever gone to an event with Mark, you know he has relationships with everybody. He knows everyone, you guys. Well, Bob, you've seen the evolution of water treatment and technologies over the years. What changes do you think have made the biggest difference for operators and facility owners?
That's a great question, Kirsten. And I think for me, it's the advancement of science and the application of science in the industry. A lot of water treatment in the past, going back a long time now, has been tribal knowledge. It's been passed along and without the science behind it. Now, there was science at the time, but the science was not being explained. So as with anything, I think it's really important for us when we do take an action in a pool, whether it be adding chemicals, we add a piece of equipment, that there's science that backs that up and science that's real. Because I can tell you there's a lot of folks out there that are rehashing old technologies that were here in the 80s and the 90s, and they weren't viable then and they're not viable now, but everybody forgot about them, or the people that were involved with it have since moved on. And now it's coming back around again, and it's still not scientific. It's just strap a magnet to a pipe using a piece of Velcro, and all of a sudden all the water molecules are aligned perfectly. And it doesn't sound right because it's not. So I think one of the biggest technologies to come along has been UV for disinfection and chloramine control for indoor facilities, the ability to monitor airborne contamination, and then also remote control of your products, being able to view your pool from a remote location, basically anywhere you are, as long as you have a smart device with you. I think those are really the biggest improvements that have been made with technology that are useful in the industry. When you boil it down, though, we're still just using chlorine and making sure the pH and the alkalinity is right. And it's been the same since forever. And there's advancements and there's not. And so I think you really need to have your feet in both old school, regular operation, all the basics, and then the fancy technology helps you fine tune it and make a better environment. But at its very core, it's still just the nuts and bolts of water chemistry. And that's what you have to have your best understanding. There's no magic there. It's just understanding and knowledge.
Both of you have spent a lot of time building trust across the industry. What does such a strong professional relationship look like in aquatics, and what does it matter so much? Start with you, Mark.
Trust is golden. You got to follow through on what you promise and what you say. It's a must. If you don't, you're going to lose respect in the industry, and respect is basically your character. And Bob, jump in at any time, but if you make its decision, stand behind it, good, bad, or otherwise. Admit when you're wrong. I'm not always right. Bob's not always right. And, I'll admit when I'm wrong, but, if I make a decision, I'm going to stand behind it. And I don't make excuses for my decisions. But you got to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And the other thing is, don't never bash or blame your competitors or their equipment or whatever the case may be. To me, that's good, not good business. It's not a good practice because, everybody's out there trying to make a buck. All their stuff works. Go with what's proven and go with what you believe in, and, respect your passion and always try to leave a footprint for others to follow. That's my motto. Always leave a footprint for others to follow.
I think Mark, you hit on some gold there, because it's really hard for me to separate business from my personal relationships, because I treat them all the same. I don't look at business as being, oh, well, I did that. It's only business. Don't worry about it. And you use it almost as an excuse to treat somebody poorly, that, well, it's not personal. It's just business. Well, for me, I think you go through life, you got one pass through here, and what you leave behind is memories of who you are with other people. And Mark brought up the word trust. Look, I look at all relationships, not just the important ones, but also minor ones you may have in life, as marriages. And marriage is hard. And anybody that's been married can attest to that it's not always, it's great. It's amazing. And however, there are difficult times, and you have to have enough trust and faith and honesty with any relationship so that you can weather the inevitable. And that inevitable is always going to be somebody's going to let you down in some way, whether big or small. But if your relationship is strong, you can weather that incident and get through it, because on the backside of it, you do have that faith, that love, that trust in each other, and you carry on. And that's what makes a solid relationship, whether it be business or just interpersonal relationship. So it's critical that you build that up and you have that strengthened relationship to weather those storms that will come. Because as a manufacturer, we're going to make a mistake, we're going to mess up, we're going to do something that doesn't make a customer happy. However, we know that we're dedicated to that customer and we're going to make it right at the end. And as long as the intentions are always good, there's a way to make things right again. And the other side of that is you may run across people whose intentions aren't always good, aren't always wholesome, and seek to take advantage of you. And that's when it's the way I always say, as long as you know who you're dealing with, you can kind of figure out any route you need to take in those cases. So that's kind of my advice on the relationship side of things.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have those foundations built up so that when
Exactly.
things happen, you have those resources to go to.
It's going to happen. I mean,
Yep.
it's inevitable. Yeah.
We'll talk about a little bit of AOAP and leadership. Mark, you've been connected to AOAP for years, including serving as the vendor liaison. What have you learned about AOAP's role in bringing the industry together?
Well, you're right. I've spent a lot of years with the AOAP. Actually, since day one, I have not missed a conference and been part of it, and it's in my blood. And that experience through all these years has really helped define my role as the deputy director. And what I've learned is that the leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about, being the steady one. You're dealing with a wide range of perspectives and personalities, and everyone comes in with different priorities. But my role's become less about pushing an agenda and more about finding alignment with our board, our attendees, and especially our vendors. One of my first observations that I learned was that credibility is earned through time. And people watch what you do a lot more than what you say. So you got to be careful. And if you show up, follow through, and stay fair, even when it's not convenient, you start to build that kind of trust that actually moves things forward and people will follow. So as far as bringing the industry together, really it comes down to is creating a common ground. Like in aquatics, it's not hard to find that if you're focused on the big things like, water quality and safety and education and professionalism. When you keep the conversation centered there, progress eventually develops. So I've also learned the value of listening. And, that was probably one of the toughest things for me because I always feel like I have something to say. But, I've learned the value of listening. And some of the best ideas don't come from the top, they come from professionals in the field. They deal with the everyday challenges that, we experience. And given those voices and a place at the table has become a big part of strengthening my knowledge in the industry as a whole. And maybe it probably is important. I've seen that in today's progress, it doesn't happen overnight. It's built through relationships, patience, and willingness to keep showing up day after day after day. And if I've helped bring people together at all, it's really been about being consistent and staying focused because the long term matters, and making sure that everyone feels like they have a stake in where the industry is heading. I think that's really important. It's just not my word. It's not our board's word. It's not Bob's word. Everybody has a word on how we move forward, and all their voices are really important. And I want to hear every single one of them because all of them could be great ideas.
That's awesome, Mark. There's so many people and so many young professionals right now in the industry that have great ideas. Bob, you've served on boards and instructor groups and committees and task forces. What keeps you motivated to stay involved beyond the scope of your day-to-day work?
I think that echoes back to something I said earlier, and it's just my love for the industry and to see the industry move forward and be better for everybody, just be a better place for employees, be a better place for patrons. And if there's in some small way that I can help foster that through anything, I'm in because, and I don't know when it happened again. I don't know how it happened because again, when I was a teenager and I was going to university, I had no idea I was going to become an aquatics professional and do the water quality thing. And then it just happened. But the love for the industry, the passion is what gets me up and wanting to do more to help, to share what I've learned over the years, and which has come with blood, sweat, and tears. Mark can attest to this, is that there's days you're in the trenches and you're just wondering, will this day ever end? And you're hoping it does. But um, you can't put that much energy into a system without getting something back out. And I think that's where we are right now, is just needing to keep feeding the industry with as much good things as we possibly can. And it's going to help everybody be better. And I think about the days when I have 5 kids, and when we used to take my kids swimming when they were little, I was obviously a critic on the water that they were getting into. And I want everybody's kids to have that experience where I always say that the experience in a swimming pool, it should be a transparent experience. And the pun is intended, because if you notice the water or if you notice the air, then something's wrong, because you shouldn't notice the water. You should just be focused on having fun. So if there's something I can do to help make that experience great for kids, great for families, great for moms and dads, whoever may be getting into the water, that's what drives me. That's what starts my engine every day and gets me out. Yeah.
For both of you, what does leadership look like in aquatics when the goal is not just selling a product or running a facility, but improving the whole profession?
Well, I'd start by saying, leave aquatics better than you found it. If you're in this industry to become rich, start looking for another profession. Again, leave a footprint. You as an operator, you have to set standards, not only for yourself, but for your staff. And, that's really important. If you don't have standards for others to follow, guess what? Things are going to fall apart and they're going to catch up to you really quickly. And as Bob has noted on numerous times, share your knowledge. If you know something and somebody doesn't know it, share that knowledge. It's so important to share knowledge in our industry and advocate for our profession. Not everybody advocates for our profession. I think that is so important because I believe, and you might hear this later on down the road, but I believe that lifeguards need higher pay. They do a fantastic job and they don't get recognized as the professionals that they are. And these operators, they deserve to get as much pay as they can possibly get. And probably the last thing I'll leave it with is collaboration. And that's what I'm so proud about AOAP is they've done a great job at collaboration. And that's something that I haven't brought into my work ethic until I joined AOAP. And they've taught me about collaboration.
Great points, Mark. And to expand on that a little bit, one of the things that I do when I teach a class is I create what I call a parking lot. So I get the whiteboard out, I get a chalkboard out. That's old fashioned term, right? um, just a dry erase board, whatever it may be. And I asked the audience, I said, what is it today that you want to learn? What keeps you up at night? What is the problem that's making your hair go gray? And that's the approach that I take with selling. It is basically solution selling. And I don't even care about the product. I want to make sure that the people, they have a need, they have a problem, and I'm going to provide them either with knowledge or equipment that's going to help make their day easier. And even sometimes that means not selling anything because they say, well, I want to buy XYZ. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but XYZ is not right for you. And here's why. And I won't sell it to them. So it's really wanting the best for others. And it's helping people come to a solution that'll make their life and their daily workday easier. And that's my approach.
And I know that you were talking about that from a selling equipment standpoint, but I hope everybody listening in the field feels that way when someone comes to their desk or into their office and says, I want to know about programs, swim team, water, whatever that is. I hope that they take that solution mindset because that's what really makes the difference for people and builds those relationships that you both talked about.
Kirsten, right. It's just meeting people where they are and finding out what their headaches are, because we have to be cognizant of the fact that each one of us has a toolkit and we have knowledge, and not all that knowledge will help any given situation, but there may be that one nugget in there that, yes, I have exactly what you need. And the people with the issue might not even know that they have an issue or they know what they need to do to solve the issue, obviously, because they're looking for help. So it's our job as professionals to be able to take that question, that concern, that problem, and help them come to a successful resolution. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, so to both of you, what advice would you give to someone who's early in their career who really wants to build a long-term future in aquatics?
Oh, the first thing you do is need to ask yourself, do you have the passion that it takes? Because if you didn't have passion in this industry, you are not going to survive. Again, you're not here to make $1 million. You have to have the passion in the industry. And like Bob said, I don't know how I fell into aquatics. It was back in my early days at Chico State working with my good buddy Jim Wheeler that I became a lifeguard to be self-sufficient. And next thing I know, I wanted to be a college coach. And next thing I know, I'm running aquatic facilities. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't see that career path coming. But, to also answer your question, I think people need to attend conferences and workshops and be on local and state and national boards. You need to get involved. And like I mentioned before, you got to have a mentor and you got to become a mentor. I think something that is really important too is don't stagnate. The last thing you can do is stagnate your operations and your facilities because from my experience, operations that teach and, train exclusively internally have the biggest issues. And also you don't have to be a pool guard, explore your options. You could be a beach guard, a water park guard, or a river, pond, pool. It doesn't matter. I didn't start off in aquatics, guarding pools and operating pools. I was at a river. That was my first lifeguard job. So, explore what your options are if you want to get into it, because there's lots to do.
The best I can do is just amplify a few things that Mark did say. I really think that the first thing is find a mentor. Find somebody you're comfortable with and pick their brain as much as you possibly can. If not just one, find 2 or 3 from different places in the industry. Also, with regards to that, don't forget the history. Understand that we all stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, there is the first people in the industry back in the 40s and 50s, and we have to understand what they were dealing with, and understanding, remembering some of the people that have come before us and appreciating the work that they put in I think it's critically important. Not knowing our history, we're going to repeat our mistakes if we don't know our history. Always learn, Mark said, always be hungry for knowledge. One of the things that when I was coming up, I was very fortunate to have back when I worked for Newman Pools, was a boss that would let me go anywhere to go to attend a conference and take classes. There was no limit, which I know back then it was different than it is now, because now, and especially for agencies, it's really hard. But there's online stuff you can do these days. And so never stop learning. What frustrates me is when people say that, well, I'm an AFO or I'm a CPO, as if that's some kind of college degree. Well, maybe, but tell me the difference between somebody with a fresh college degree and somebody who's been in the industry for 20 years plus has the college degree. Who's going to be better at doing their job? I would say the person with the wisdom and the experience of the 20 years in the field. So always learn, always look for learning opportunities, go to conference, take classes. And along with that, meet people. Mark said it again, is that network. The more people you can meet, the more mentors you're going to find, the more knowledge and questions you're going to be able to ask and learn from. And it's just I think those 3 things, just finding good mentorship, always be hungry to learn, and also meet people, network. And those 3 things will really pay off in the long run if you're dedicated to the industry. And then I think lastly, don't whatever your role is, be prepared to take that hat off and just be a pool person. Just be an aquatics professional. You don't have to be the director of this or the manager of that. Just love the industry and take it as a whole, because there's many aspects to the industry and you need to know about those too as well, because my specialty is not lifeguarding. It's in the technical side of things. However, I do know quite a bit about lifeguarding because of the people that I've met, the people I've talked to, and the lifeguard managers. So I've learned through them. So again, this is where the networking is critical.
Yeah, I think you said it big where you have to kind of take off your hat or have a lot of hats in the industry. That's something we've heard from a lot of our other guests as well. But now we have to talk about AOAP's Aquatic Technical School. Let's start at the beginning. What problems were you seeing in the industry that made you say, we need something like a tech school? Why did you identify hands-on training as the missing piece?
Well, I can tell you the moment that the tech school idea came together, I was having breakfast with a member of the CMAC at a not AOAP conference, it was a different conference, and we're sitting there lamenting over the fact that we were noticing a diminishment of the technical skills of people coming into the industry. I think I can read into this a little bit, is that it's just a way of our society right now, is that there are less people getting into trades these days than ever before. I think people aren't used to repairing their own stuff at home, that they're used to calling a service person to come in and take care of it. And so people are less hands-on, less understanding of, and I'm just going to use this as a dumb example, but how to use a screwdriver. But moving that up to how to use a digital multimeter. How do you learn how to use that? So we're trying to encourage good people to come in as service techs through education, because we've seen a diminishment in people's natural skills are bringing into these roles. So we want to help up the skill level of people that are getting into these roles. And then the people that do have the roles as technicians, we want them to be better at what they do, become more marketable, be able to command better salaries, just be able to move up the ladder into maybe management roles or more supervisory roles. So it's for the betterment of the industry, but it's always over just a breakfast over an omelet or some scrambled eggs or bacon, or I forget what it was. But we both agreed that there is some issues with the people just didn't seem to have the technical skill levels coming in at the entry side of things as they did in the past.
And how that was born too is, so I was sitting down, it might have been with Breakfast with Bob, and he goes, I got an idea. And I'm like, I'm listening. And he said, well, I'm seeing a gap that keeps repeating itself over and over and over as this industry grows. And I'm like, I'm listening. And so we started talking about implementing, tech school into AOAP. And I'm like, Bob, you are a genius. This is awesome. And that's kind of what really drove the need for stronger education and technology. Um, and when I was out visiting different facilities back in my sales days, I had always pitched AOAP to all these operators, and all the techs are like, I want to go, but there's no tracks there for technicians. And I'm like, oh, we got to get tracks for technicians. But instead, we took it one step further, and added on the tech school. Um, and what this did was just not only provide more information and better training to these guys, but it was something that provided them some hands-on training that made them better technicians that they could bring back. So many of the technicians that I dealt with back in the day were the old handshake guys that learned from a manual. I've been doing it this way for 30 years, and they're going to be doing it this way for 30 years more. Maybe so, but that doesn't mean that it's right or that it's wrong. But, there's so much more information out there that they really needed to learn and understand, because a well-trained technician doesn't just follow steps. They need to understand why they're doing something, and then that allows them to be a better technician. So at the end of the day, a better technician doesn't just monitor water. They raised the standard for the entire industry. And that was the goal that Bob and I wanted to pursue, is we want to make his part of the profession better than it was before.
And to dovetail into that, one of the things that we've seen with a lot of technicians is they become just parts replacers rather than being able to diagnose what the issue is and fixing that specific thing. They just start throwing parts at a problem until it's like throwing darts at a dartboard with the blindfold on. You may solve it, you may not. I've seen situations with equipment where people have thrown thousands of dollars at a problem, and it turned out it wasn't what they thought it was at all. And so they just wasted all that time, all that money, and wound up fixing something that didn't really require much at all, but they were way off on the wrong tangent because they weren't diagnosing the issue. So we're hoping to improve the industry by bringing diagnostic skills to people, hands-on experiences, so that they can take that just better at their job and better for the industry. And it's good for everybody. There's no downside to it. So we're pretty excited about the school and what it brings to the industry. And we want to elevate the industry to a more professional level.
All right, guys, can you share a moment or example where you saw the bulb go off for a participant during a hands-on portion of the tech school?
So I think it happens all the time. And if you're watching, especially when you're presenting and you're watching the eyes of your people, all of a sudden you'll see somebody you'll see them kind of roll their head back, and they'll close their eyes, and then they'll start get a smile on their face, and they'll start nodding with you. And at that moment, you know that you've made a connection. And that's the light bulb moment that we're talking about, because so many times we can get up there and we can talk about something, but we don't know if we're talking about something that's meaningful to people. And so one of the important things, and that's why we really drove to hands-on, is to have that interaction where we can discover and help lead people along and we can actually cultivate and grow those light bulb moments rather than just waiting them to randomly happen. So we're really in tune. We try to stay focused on the feedback that we're getting from the folks that are in attendance. And then we can kind of craft. If a lot of our speakers are very, very good, and they can see how to move the conversation in order to get more light bulbs to go on than not. And so that's really important that we have those type of speakers. But yeah, it happens a lot. It's almost every session, every year it's just not once in a while. And if you're holding a good class, you'll see that response a lot.
Agree with you, Bob. And I think one of the best parts for me is when you you preach the tech school and how much they're going to enjoy it, and they attend and they come up to you and they go, gee, you're right. You're absolutely right. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be, and 10 times more. And thank you so much for introducing this to me. I really appreciate it. And by the way, I won't have to start calling you for every problem now because I have a resource. Thank you very much for that.
Bob, you talked about cultivating and growing. And I think we hear a lot about experienced technicians who are retiring, and newer professionals are learning on the job, maybe on their own without that resource to call. So, how does tech school help bridge that gap and accelerate readiness for attendees?
Wow, that's a big question. I think one of the things we're trying to do with tech school is to bring those people with that vast experience to come in. This year we bolstered our instructor, our organizer group into some really powerful, well-known, and well-versed people in the industry.
All
And we're
stars.
bringing, really, it's an all-star. Yeah, Mark, that's a great way to put it. It's an all-star crew for organizing the people that are behind the scenes, organizing the tech schools. And we're handpicking the people that are not only really good at what they do, but they're up and comers, and maybe even some new people, because we're always on the lookout for new talent. And so we have the old sage wisdom guys behind the scenes here who aren't necessarily going to get up in front anymore, but it's our job to help facilitate and help mentor the people that are speaking. And so that's how we do that. So we're almost crafting, cultivating, growing a new generation of leaders is on top of what we're doing. Besides the people that are coming in to learn from school, we're also help develop that next generation of leaders through the people who are speaking. And those are the people that I hope someday are going to take the reins from us and continue this tradition on and keep passing it on generation to generation.
Tech school isn't just about the equipment and the systems. What are some of the bigger picture skills or mindsets you hope attendees walk away with tech school?
Say confidence and a resume of confidence or contacts, or just have a whole resume of contacts. What's really good is your hand-on knowledge is from the vendors themselves who actually manufacture and build the equipment. They know that equipment inside and out. As much as I'd like to say I know it or Bob knows it, these guys work with it every single day. So you're getting accurate and up-to-date information on the latest equipment that's in the industry. And I think the last one I have to say is you get friends for life. You're going to walk away having friends for life once you participate in that.
Yeah. And I think you again, Mark, you're hitting on some great stuff that I can only amplify. So let's start going first for some of these questions. I think one of the things, and boy, there's so much to unpack there. One of the things that I think is really important for us to realize is that manufacturers are not the evil empire that some people think they are. There's a mindset that exists out there that somehow people from a company are out to, the only job is for them to take advantage of you, sell a piece of equipment that you don't need or doesn't work, and you pay a lot of money for, and they never back it up. But I think by having manufacturers representatives there, we get to show everybody we're people too. We're just human beings. We're not some kind of ogres from some different planet. And that Mark's right. I mean, who knows the equipment better than the people that designed it? Right. I mean, and the equipment in the aquatics world is tested inside and out for years before it even hits the market. And not only that, it's certified 6 ways to Sunday. If anybody thinks that going through NSF or UL testing is a cakewalk, sometimes it takes over a year for it to go through testing, any given piece of equipment, and hundreds of thousands of dollars later for the testing protocols and the procedures. So I think it's really important for people to realize that we're a great resource. Manufacturers are a great resource. So that's one minor thing. The other thing that I want people to come out of class is realizing that they don't know a lot. I want them to learn more, but I also want them to leave hungry, like, gosh, I'm only scratching the surface of this topic. And I need to get a book open. I need to learn more. I need to find a mentor. I need to have somebody explain more about this to me. So I think making people hungry for more knowledge is really an important aspect of the tech school too, because quite frankly, some of these 2-hour sessions, we could actually teach for 2 days and still not hit all the things that we need to hit with any given subject. So I really want people to understand that getting a certificate in any school, any class, anything is just a start for your knowledge base. And that's a 101 level class. Keep going, keep learning more, make friends with manufacturers. So I think, just to recap, the biggest thing is just making sure that we leave people realizing that there's so much more to understand about any given topic, and then leaving them with the hunger to go find that. Maybe someday we'll have tech level 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. We'll see.
And really quick, Bob, just to follow up on that. A lot of the equipment out there is Ford, Dodge, Chevy. They all do the same thing. One of the good things about having the speakers that we bring in there is they are going to be a resource for you. They are going to answer the phone and pick up the phone when you call. And from a buyer standpoint, remember it's Ford, Dodge, Chevy. All equipment pretty much does the same thing, but the people that stand behind the equipment that they sell and answer the phone when you call and give you the information that you need and get out there and service the equipment that you need, those are the people that you need to be dealing with. Everybody can sell you equipment, but do they service and stand behind it? That's what you got to focus on when you're buying something, because you're spending a lot of money on pool equipment. Remember, pools are like boats, break out another 1,000, because that's exactly what you're doing when you own a pool.
There's Mark coming in clutch with the relationship conversation again.
That's right.
There you go.
Okay, y'all, if someone's on the fence about attending, how would you explain to them the impact that tech school can have both on their job and also on the safety and success of their entire facility?
I think you will never come away without learning something. And the way I look at a lot of these classes, sometimes they can be life-changing. They can be completely altering to the way you think, but you won't know until you go. And the other side of that, how bad can it be? I mean, if you come away with a nugget or two that helps you do your job better or perform better, that's gold right there. That's pure gold, that you came away with one idea. And I can't tell you how many conferences I've been to. I sat through a session I could probably teach, but they say one thing and all of a sudden it spurs a cascade of ideas in my head. And my mind just starts racing down these roads, and all of a sudden things are clicking that I didn't think about before. So this is where it comes in, is you have to put energy into the system to get something out. So if you're expecting to be a professional and you're expecting to perform at a very high level on your job and have, get paid accordingly, and who doesn't want to get paid more? Well, then you got to continuously up your game, and getting those little pieces of knowledge and networking. You come to class, you're going to get all those things. You're going to learn things you never knew before. You're going to meet people that are just amazing and that you want to stay friends with. You're going to meet manufacturers that you want to stay in contact with. Going to conference, you're going to meet hundreds of people. I mean, if you put yourself out there, you could also attend and just go back to your hotel room and, play video games or something too. But again, you're going to get out what you put in. And so if you want a lot out, then you got to put a lot into the system, because that's the way the universe works.
What I've personally seen over the years is that there's a gap between the average tech and a great tech. And it comes down to training. It really does. Because you don't want to learn just in the field, you want to learn in the classroom as well. And you don't have to learn through trial and error. And it could save you thousands of dollars down the road on unnecessary callbacks and safety issues by just gaining some additional information. And customers will trust you more, and staff will rely and trust you more. And this opens the door to better jobs and responsibilities down the road. And at the end of the day, it's just not about going to school. It's about deciding how good you want to do your job. And, that's what we strive to do. How can we teach you to do your job better and more efficiently?
I don't know about you, Kirsten, but I'm ready to sign up for tech school right now. So
I'm in.
All right.
I know some people that can get you in there, Daniel. So
Yeah, we know a guy.
we know
couple guys though.
a few. Yeah.
All right, so we can't have the two of you guys on the show and not talk about the AOAP conference. We're going back to Reno in 2027, and there's a lot of excitement around that. What makes Reno such a memorial setting for our community?
Reno, the Grand Sierra is a great location, and I love it personally because it keeps everybody in one place. A lot of people always look for distractions, but for me, I'm coming to conference to meet people at the conference, not to be distracted. And so this is why some of the places like Vegas can be a little bit daunting to hold a conference for, because there's so many competing things for people's attention. At Reno, we're in one location. Everything you could possibly want is right there. The great venue, great hotel rooms, great entertainment, as far as what's going to be put on by AOAP. They have all the food choices you could ever want right on site, and the prices are very, very reasonable. And so I think beyond the networking with thousands of other people in the schools and the sessions you can go to, I think Reno is probably one of my favorite locations for all those reasons.
I've always said it doesn't really matter where we go. We could go to Tijuana, or we could go to Palm Springs or Aspen, Colorado. It's not about the location. It's about the people that you meet and the people that you see, and establishing all those relationships. And, I get to see my friends all over again. Um, the one thing that I did remember most about our last trip to Reno was, I think 5 or 6 days went by and I had never went outside to see the sunshine, because everything you need, everything you want is right there. And they do, like Bob said, they have great food, great venues. It's a great place to network, and we hope to see you there.
The same thing happened to me. I realized all of a sudden I had never actually left the resort. It was just so self-contained. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Mark, I thought you were going to tell me the favorite memory of yours from Reno was the Wednesday night social. So to clue people in who were not with us in Reno last time, they had this great nightclub, which is unfortunately no longer there. But it had a pool in it, which we did not swim in, and we kept lifeguarded the entire time. Thank you. But we also had a fantastic 70s band. And Mark, I think you were the one who had Bob put on a little performance that quite possibly may never be topped at an aquatic conference ever again. For listeners who weren't there, how would you describe that moment when Bob got up on stage and revealed that he could just shred it?
Well, for people who know me and have been around me long enough, they always know that I look for, what is it, Bob?
The wow
The wow
factor.
factor, yes.
A wow factor. And when we first walked into that venue, Bob and I looked at each other and we went, wow, we could do something really special here. So as we started building on all these great ideas about the evening, the night, the sponsors, and everything else, something popped into my brain. Back when we were in Florida, we had a luau, and I was going to try to get my old employer at the time, Mr. Charlie Luker, up on the stage to do a hula dance with all the hula dancers that we had at the event. And I thought it was going to be a good roast for Charlie because he was a sponsor and everybody knew him. And it would be great to see him up there doing his little shake and move and everything else. Well, it backfired. And I was the one who had to go up there. And for years, I would go to conferences and people have it on their cell phone showing me. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope this doesn't get out. They're like, up, too late. So the idea popped in my head. Hey, let's do this again, but I'm going to use Bob and I'm going to trick the whole audience, and only Bob and I are going to know this process. So what had happened is I knew that Bob had a background in playing in bands. So when we hired the band, we asked them if Bob could come up and play with them. And they said, sure. So we set the stage for me getting up on stage and thanking all the sponsors and everything else. And I asked the group, I said, hey, how many people would like to see Bob Kappel come up here and sing? And the whole audience went, woo, yeah, that'd be great. And you could hear Bob in the background, I can't sing. And then we asked him, oh, how many people would like to hear Bob play guitar? Woo! Bob goes, I can't play guitar. Well, Bob, you're going to play guitar. So Bob reluctantly walks over and picks up a guitar and playing around, puts it on backwards. It was hilarious. I was crying when I was on the stage. Well, then all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they go into this whole set. I think it was 25-6-4 by Chicago, and the whole place erupted. And from that point on to the rest of the night, it was electric. And Bob, you were great. You were fantastic. Better than I even thought you would be. So congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I honestly didn't think that. I thought you were just setting him up as well as someone out there. So it was cool to see that, and it definitely brought the house down for sure. Like you said, set
Mark's
the tone for
plan
the rest of
worked.
the night. It did.
Exactly.
So who knows? Maybe next year there will all be another plan just like that. You never know, because we're always looking for the wow factor.
You need
Okay,
to trademark that
you really do.
phrase.
Yeah.
If he hasn't already.
I know.
All right. So more broadly, what do in-person conferences make possible that a lot of people don't always get from the emails, the webinars, or the phone calls?
Say the word, Mark. It starts with R. Relationships.
Networking. There's nothing better than hands-on, for sure. Like most people, they get on, they start watching things and they fade really quickly. Well, when you're hands-on, everything is in constant motion. There's so many things to do, so many people to meet, so many different things going on at one time. It's just, you can't beat it. And we learned kind of that process through the COVID days when we tried to have our conference online. It's just not the same. I'm a hugger person. I love to hug people. I can't hug people when here, Bob, just can't do it. And, that's what AOAP is about, seeing your family, seeing your friends, seeing your people that you haven't seen for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, humans to me desire connection, and I don't think there's a better place than AOAP to do that, because we're all there for the same reason, or most of us are, is to build that connection, to have that, build those relationships, build that rapport. You make friends for life. Some of these folks, they're friends. I mean, and almost family to a point, because you know each other so well and you've spent so much time together over the years. And I think renewing that friendship, renewing that relationship in person is so invaluable. It's so different than just calling somebody up on the telephone. Seeing that person again, you haven't seen them in 365 days or whatever it may be, 350 days, and seeing that person in the flesh, looking them in the eye, and just sitting down with them and having a conversation about something that has nothing to do with pools is just so refreshing, so amazing. So I think it's that human connection that makes the in-person so much more valuable.
Yeah, the education sessions are fabulous, but those hallway conversations, hanging out, I mean, that's immeasurable.
And, you bring a good point there, Kirsten, because a lot of times, when we have upper management in my area looking at the cost of coming to a conference and sending booths and multiple people in the booth and plane travel and rental cars and meals and hotel costs and whatnot. It's a lot of money. And so they tried to force metrics onto, well, how many things did you sell? And it's the intangibles that are so important of coming to conference. You spend the money again, and I just say you're putting energy into a system. You're building relationships, friendships, you're learning, and it can only happen face to face. It happens to a much lesser degree online via, video conferences. So being there in person will give you that edge in your career that you can't find anywhere else.
It's funny you say that because I hear a lot of people come back with, what's the ROI and, what did you how much did you sell? How much did you make when you went there? And I always used to say this, how much did I make? I made zero. But what I did was I pollinated the flower, and eventually the flower is going to grow, and eventually we will blossom and we will grow and we will get something from that because I was there.
Mark coming in clutch with an analogy there.
We're going to jump to the lightning round. Quick questions, quick answers. Okay. So, what's one thing every aquatic professional should focus on this year?
Consistency.
Separating fact from fiction, separating science from pseudoscience.
Holding yourself at a higher standard.
Love
Learning
it.
one more new thing.
Yes. Okay. Tell me a tool, a resource, or technology that you guys think people should pay more attention to this year.
Increased pay. Lifeguard shortage, More pay, you get more lifeguards.
I think that if you can't attend classes at other conferences in person, look to attend as many things via video conference or just online learning as you possibly can, because a lot of the content now, a lot of the important content is online. However, separate pseudoscience from science. And you got to take that analogy in because there's so much misinformation out there online.
Okay. What's one lesson the industry keeps teaching you?
If you think you know everything about aquatics, you're wrong.
That's a good point. The more things change, the more they remain the same.
What's your favorite part of being a part of the AOAP community?
Seeing you and Bob every time I go to the show, and the rest of my aquatic family.
I have to do that too. Mark, you hit it on the head because it's actually exciting for me to get back together with my friends, especially on the AOAP board. Some of these people are some of the finest people I've ever met in my life. And so it's like a reunion more than just coming in to do some work.
It is, for sure.
Okay, last one. Coffee, conference hallway, or exhibit hall? Where do the best conversations happen?
All the above. If that's not the case, you haven't experienced AOAP at its finest.
So I have to add one other place. It's called the bar. Napkins have been the best drawing board, the tablecloths. And also it's a term that is not mine. It's called thinking drinking. And so, or drinking thinking, I forgot which order that comes in. But some of the best ideas come when you're a little bit lubricated from your favorite beverage and you're throwing stuff out there and you're talking about things and you get some great ideas.
I think one of the things that AOAP is most proud about is it doesn't just happen in the coffee shop or the conference where the exhibit hall. It happens from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed.
And that's also indicated by how many people attend after hours events and just want to stay together and want to do things together, and how many small groups get together. It's innumerable that they get together after events just to stay together and keep talking.
There was a day that we used to stay up late and network until the wee hours of the morning, although that doesn't happen anymore. But, I hope some people carry on that tradition.
Mark,
That's the younger
I'm
folks.
sure the younger folks are carrying it on our stead, for sure.
We got
There you go,
right.
Daniel.
All right, Daniel, attaboy.
All right, we'll pass the baton.
Yeah.
Mark and Bob, thank you so much for joining us and for everything that you've contributed to the aquatics industry as a whole. Your experience and your leadership and just your willingness to share knowledge are a big part of what makes the aquatics industry stronger.
Thanks so much for having
Thank
us.
you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So for our listeners, we'll include relevant AOAP conference and resource information in the show notes, along with links to our organizations and companies mentioned today. To learn more about AOAP's training, conference, and drowning prevention resources, visit aquaticpros.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on AOAP's discussion from the deep end, made for aquatic professionals by aquatic professionals.